For a lot of people, retirement isn't exactly the finish line they imagined. After you've spent decades working, it can be a pretty confusing, even jarring new beginning. So today, we're going to break down a really unique perspective on how to navigate this big change and uncover why a tiny 3% find real success, while almost everyone else, well, they stumble.
So just imagine this for a second. You've dedicated a huge part of your life to one company. You've climbed the ladder, you've earned all this respect, and then, bam, one day, it's over. The question that hits you is simple, but it is so profound. What on earth do I do now? And that is a moment of just massive uncertainty.
And right away, here's the first major challenge. Yesterday, you were a manager, a respected veteran in your field. Today, you might feel like you're right back at square one, entry level, just searching for a role. Yeah, that sudden drop in status, it can be a massive shock to the system.
Okay, so you find yourself at this crossroads, and the pressure is on to do something, anything. You want to get back that sense of purpose, that financial stability. And that's when let's say, a very common and very tempting path starts to look really good.
For a lot of people, the default move is to take their retirement savings and just start a business. It seems logical, right? Be your own boss, take control, rebuild everything on your own terms. But this is where our source material throws a huge curveball.
And believe it or not, that seemingly smart choice, it leads you straight into what our source calls the 97% failure trap. This is the part where all that conventional wisdom gets turned completely upside down. Just look at that number for a second, 97%. According to the speaker, that's the failure rate for retirees who start a business with one primary goal, to make money. That is a staggering statistic. It basically suggests this path is almost a guaranteed dead end. So what in the world is going on here? Well, the speaker really doesn't mince words about it. The problem isn't your business idea or your work ethic. It's all about your motivation. If your only driving force is to make money, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure from day one. So what about that tiny 3% who actually make it? What's their secret? Well, it's not a better business plan. It's a totally different mindset. They succeed because they're driven by something other than a desperate need for an income. And this distinction, it is absolutely critical.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question, right? If the most obvious path is actually a trap, what's the right move? Where do you even go from here? Thankfully, the source offers a completely different blueprint for this next chapter of your life. It's called the Second Leap Blueprint. And the core idea here is a really radical shift in perspective. You've got to stop thinking about earning and start thinking about learning. That right there is the foundation for a successful new beginning. So the speaker has this key concept they call the interim buffer. The best way to think of it is this. Retirement is not the final stop. It's a planned pause, a strategic buffer period designed specifically for you to recalibrate and prepare for your second leap, a powerful relaunch into a new, really meaningful phase of your life. So how does it work? It's a pretty clear three-step plan. First, you study. You dedicate anywhere from 7 months up to 3 years just to focused learning and self-improvement. Second, you upskill. You get the modern skills you're missing. And third, you re-enter the workforce, but with a completely new mission. And what kind of skills are we talking about here? Well, it's not about just brushing up on your old job skills, it's about becoming relevant today. The source points to things like mastering modern computers and digital tools, but also practical things like really improving language abilities for a globalized world and consciously bridging that gap between all your hard-earned experience and what the industry needs right now. Okay, this is the big mindset shift in action. When you do find a new job, you're not just there to collect a paycheck. You are there to learn on the job, to get real-world experience in a modern environment. It's almost like your salary is a scholarship that lets you keep learning. And look, this might be the toughest part to accept, but it's essential. The speaker suggests you should be prepared to take a lower salary, maybe around 70% of the standard rate. Why would you do that? Because you're not just an employee, you're an apprentice. The value you're getting isn't just in the money, it's in the growth and the skills you're building for your real long-term future. So let's zoom out for a second. This advice isn't just practical nuts and bolts stuff. It's all part of a much bigger philosophy about the times we're living in, an era the speaker calls the Jongbo Sidae. So what does that mean? Jongbub Sidae basically translates to an era of right principles.
The core belief here is that society itself is changing. We've entered a time where the quick fixes, the greedy motives, the shortcuts, they just don't work anymore. True success now comes from following a principled path, investing in yourself, learning with integrity, and bringing real value to the table. And this leads to a really powerful, really empowering message. The speaker tells retirees, hey, don't you dare see yourselves as obsolete. You're treasures. You are the heroes whose wisdom and renewed skills are actually essential for building a stronger future. It just completely flips the script from a story of loss to one of immense potential. So here's the final takeaway, the bottom line. That classic image, buying a little one-ton truck to start some small business, forget it. That's the 97% trap. The smarter investment, by far, is to take a breath, recharge after a long career, and use your resources to invest in the most valuable asset you have, yourself.
So, in the end, this whole thing isn't about an end, is it? It's about a new beginning. It's about getting ready for a second, and maybe even more meaningful, leap. Which leaves us with a really important question to think about for ourselves. If you were preparing for your own second leap, what's the very first thing you'd want to learn?